capital city to assess ongoing works on the Banjul Roads and Drainage Project. Vice President Aissatou Toure presides over the official opening of stakeholder dialogue of the National Environment Management Council. Beginning 16-day activism to end gender-based violence, women councillors gather to discuss social issues affecting women across the country. In sports, legendary Argentine footballer Diego Armando Maradona dies aged 60. Alberto Fernandez, the president of Argentina, declares 3 days of national mourning. Elsewhere, Trump's policy to regulate illegal migration among Africans is expected to take effect on the 24th of December 2020. These and many others coming ahead in the news tonight. With me, Fatu Elika Mulushi. Many thanks for joining us. Hello there. We begin today's bulletin with the presidency because the President, His Excellency Adama Barrow, Wednesday embarked on a tour of the capital city, Banjul, where his government is undertaking a $40 million infrastructure project to rehabilitate the dilapidated roads and drainage system in the city. The flagship project is now entering its final stages and is expected to transform Banjul into a modern city with standard roads and drainage facilities. As we hear in this report by Mamadou Jallo, the President is looking forward to replicate the project in other towns such as Sarakunda.
State House for another tour of the capital Banjul to survey ongoing works on one of the most important projects undertaken by his government. The Banjul Roads and Drainage Project was launched 2 years ago to rehabilitate the city's infrastructure, which had completely broken down after years of neglect. As usual, the President and entourage of ministers and other government officials received a rousing reception from excited Banjulians. They came out in numbers to express appreciation to the government leader. The multi-million-dollar project is contracted to Guy Construction, a local company that has already won praise for the quality and pace of its work. Within the last 2 years, the company has completed most of the major roads in Banjul, and works are still ongoing in this part of the city to pave the road and rebuild the drainage. The project is hugely popular amongst Banjulians, many of whom believe it will revive the city, which has seen many of its residents migrate to the Combos.
We are very happy with this project because it has revived Banjul. It has given Banjul a facelift. We are very grateful to the President, every one of us, men and women, young and old.
We have seen the changes. This is why we came out in numbers to support Adama Barrow.
Others believe the project underscores President Barrow's commitment to the city, as he has fulfilled his promise to rehabilitate its infrastructure.
The roads are indeed very good, and everyone is happy with this project. We have seen great changes.
52 years, Banjul
For 52 years, Banjul has been in mourning. Today, we are walking freely. Everyone going their business unhindered, and we are all happy. We can only thank the President.
For the President, this tour of the works are highly significant, as it would accord him the opportunity to once again assess works, meet the contractors and residents.
This project is very close to my heart. I visited Banjul in 2018. Banjul was completely dilapidated. It was a situation that it is a must-done project. We have to. With the contractor Hardin, we were able to start work in Banjul, and that was 2019. I inspected Banjul in 2019. I was really impressed, and it made a big impact in the life of Banjulians. This year, it has really changed. Everybody is seeing the project now. I think the project speaks for itself. This is a project that is important, not for Banjul alone, but for the Gambia. Banjul is our capital city. We cannot afford to ignore Banjul. That's why it's a very expensive project, It is costing us over 40 million US dollars, but I think it worth it.
President Barrow was equally impressed with the turnout among Banjulians, which he believes shows that they appreciate his government's development programs and policies, which he now hopes to replicate in Serekunda.
Banjulians coming out in their numbers is because of the impact of the project on their life. I think seeing is believing. That's why we are talking, but we said no. We will start work. When we start work, then people will see what we are doing. They appreciate what we are doing. That's why Banjulians came out in their numbers to support us. Definitely, I think this project is not Banjulians alone. Every Gambian should appreciate this project. We need everybody's support, you, the journalists, and everybody. We need media houses to be positive so that they can be showing the things that we are doing. I think this is a big example. Everybody should come to Banjul so that people will see the project. And we want to replicate these projects. Places like Serekunda, Birkama, all our capital cities. This is what we want to do.
The president also visited the St. Joseph's Senior Secondary School, where he was warmly welcomed by teachers and students. He promised to extend support to the girls-only school, which has seen the main road paved, much to the appreciation of the school authorities. Before returning to the State House, President Barrow sat with the religious leaders of Banjul, who converged at the King Fahad Mosque to offer prayers for the president and his government. This, according to General Aliou Maska, the Imam Ratib of Banjul, is to commend the president for his charismatic leadership qualities and development projects across the country. President Barrow and entourage left for the State House, driving through the streets of the capital as noisily and triumphantly as they started, having inspected the work that has already transformed Banjul. Mamadou Diallo, GRTS News.
The President, Adama Barrow there. Now, staying with the presidency, as the Vice President, Her Excellency, Dr. Aissatou Touré, has presided over the official opening of the maiden edition of the Stakeholder Dialogue of the National Environment Management Council. Fatijane reports on the convergence of the council under the chairperson of President Adama Barrow.
Council meeting since its establishment in 1994. The Council, which serves as the supervisory body overseeing the activities of the Ministry of Environment, is headed by President Adama Barrow. The National Environment Management Council was formed in 1994, recommended by the Rio Conference on Sustainable Development. Lamin Diba is the Minister of Environment, Climate Change and Natural Resources, further explained the role of the Council.
This we want to incorporate in all what we are doing to ensure that our energy policies, our environment respond to this kind of situation within the NDC. And we look at areas that are sensitive to climate change, like transport, like agriculture, and even health. Because there are a lot of health implications when it comes to climate change. And a lot of other disasters are also happening. So all these are issues that the Council will really look at and come up with policy decisions that will be implemented by all the other stakeholders.
The Gambia is one of the 2 countries in the world that has a nationally determined contribution that can keep the world at a minimum of 1.5 degrees Celsius. Having the Council meeting will further strengthen the Gambia's contribution towards a sustainable environment.
The Gambia is in a good shape in terms of climate because we know that Gambia is highly vulnerable to climate change. Looking at our being in the Sahel zone alone, make us vulnerable, either too much rain or too little rain. When this happens, it has a lot of implications. It has health implications. It also has implications on our food production systems, and it also has, social and economic impact. Because when the population goes hungry, that could create social chaos.
The meeting also availed the Council members the opportunity to discuss issues of environmental concerns as the government of the Gambia renewed its commitment to tackling the challenges. The Wednesday convergence, which took place at the Sadauda Karaba Jawara Conference Center in Bijilo, was officiated by the Vice President, Dr. Aissatou Touré.
The early warning system will be improved by coordinating and involving more relevant stakeholders, as well as expanding its scope to include hazard profile, contingency plans, insurance schemes, Africa risk capacity, and agricultural and nutritional information. For effective functioning of the early warning action. Government will work towards establishment of a central information system to direct early action, capacity building, as well as the required equipment for collecting and processing data.
Climate change is one of the major environmental issues the Gambia is mitigating, and the National Environment Management Council is expected to provide a technical support in the realization of the goals plus other environmental-related targets. Reporting for the news, I am Fatu Janimbai.
Moving on, lawmakers have been debating on the draft 2021 estimates of the revenue and expenditure of the Gambia in the fourth ordinary session of the National Assembly. Aminata Isanyang was following proceedings and filed in this report.
This marks the fourth ordinary session of the National Assembly. The debate focused on the draft 2021 estimates of revenue and expenditure of the Gambia. The Finance Committee presented their report on the budget.
The National Audit Office, what was approved last year by us was 112 million. And they requested for 208 million for 2021 estimate. That's what they requested for. In our conversations with them, or in our meetings with them, we asked them to reduce their budget by 80 million, which they've agreed, and they've also done that. So really, there was no push and pull between us and them. They understood the economic situation of the country, and they've agreed to reduce their budget by 80 million. Essentially, what we are recommending is 128 million. Now, we have not cut any particular area. We've asked them to do the cutting themselves. We gave the knife back to them for them to cut, and they were able to cut and give us a report which we're going to submit to the Minister of Finance so that they can do the reallocation, but they have actually agreed to cut 80 million.
After the reading of the budget by the Finance Committee, deputies took turns to debate.
I don't know whether the committee is aware that they have a saving of 500 million. 500 million is being saved for the Minister of Agriculture. But out of that 500 million, I do understand from the document that the Select Committee on Agriculture is recommending 300 million out of that 500 million to go to the agriculture sector. So the remaining 200 million will ask for a question. So I don't know who will answer to that question.
Other deputies raised concerns about the areas the budget did not cover, as well as the Ministry of Women's Affairs not being adequately catered for.
Honorable Speaker, we have recently established a Ministry of Women Affairs. And you know how much is allocated to this ministry? 0.39%. When we have over 60% of women in this country, I am glad to see that the committee have mentioned the inadequacy of what is given to them. And I appeal to this August House to look into it and give them more. The women are the builders of this country.
Honorable Speaker, it is high time governments that come in and go out start thinking about the Kabada corridor. In this estimate that we are talking about 2021, Honorable Speaker, I have not seen any rural road projects in these estimates that covers Kabada corridor. Honorable Speaker, in these estimates, 2021 budget estimates, I have not seen under the Ministry of Health any proposal projects. And the Minister of Health stood here during the third ordinary session. He told me that under the Kabada corridor will benefit almost 2 constructions of health centers. I have not seen it in the development budget of the health ministry.
The debate on the budget, which covers ministries and other institutions, ushered in an intense discussion among deputies. Aminata Isanyang, GRTS.
Now, women councillors from across the country are holding discussion on issues affecting women from their various communities. The women representatives used the opportunity to celebrate the 16 days of activism designed to fight gender-based violence, wearing orange-colored tags signifying the abuse women go through. The event was graced by the Minister of Women, Children and Social Welfare. Fatou Diba was at the event and she filed in this report.
Members of the National Women's Council, an organization established by an Act of Parliament. It is one of the quarterly meetings where women councillors gather to reflect on their achievements and challenges. The forum also seeks to discuss means of improving the lives and livelihoods of women across the country. Participants say the meeting came at a time where women all around the world are advocating for the elimination of gender-based violence. Participants say the meeting came at a time where women all around the world are advocating for the elimination of gender-based violence, which many described as a collective role.
Gambia has to be developed, and there is no way we can develop this country without the coalition of Gambian women. The Gambian women have to come together. Together we stand. If we don't stand together, we cannot push our agendas, and that is why our expectation is to be together, to have our ideas together, to have our differences together, to have a plan, to develop ways how to deal with our problems, to develop ways how to achieve our goals.
And as a nominated member in this council, my role is to educate the women here present on the laws that are created by the government of the Gambia, promoting and protecting the rights of women in the Gambia as well as children in the Gambia. So therefore, we have to emphasize on the awareness raising for all women and also men, because when we talk about promotion and protection of the rights of women and children, of course, we are not expecting just the women alone to be involved. We expect the men also to be involved in the fight, to be involved in the promotion and protection of these rights for our women and children.
One of the core mandates of the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Welfare is to fight for the elimination of abuses women and girls face in various forms and shapes. One of the core mandates of the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Welfare is to fight for the elimination of abuses women and girls face in various forms and shapes.
The ministry is now responsible for advising government on all issues related to women's advancement. And as a result, we have come up with a cabinet paper in which we have changed the role or the mandate of the council. The councillors now will be advising the ministry on issues related to women's advancement. And then the ministry, in turn, will advise government.
And when you look at the structure of the ministry, we have a directorate that is responsible for gender equality and women empowerment. And of course, within the directorate, we have a special unit that is responsible for addressing issues of gender-based violence. The 16 days is designated for us to celebrate and take stock. But of course, what is significant here is what we have done before the 16 days. I mean, for the first time, we have established a hotline where women can call and put up their complaint.
During the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, communities and authorities are expected to put strict measures and actions to end violence women and girls face in the country. Fatou Diba for GRTS News.
Now, still on that theme, we are now joined in the studio by the Minister of Women's Affairs, Mrs. Fatou Kinte-Sanyang, who's here with us. Welcome to the GRTS studios, Minister, once again.
Thank you very much.
And we understand that this particular ministry will soon, in fact, turn into the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Welfare. Is that correct?
That's quite right.
Okay. I mean, what is going to be so exceptional about the change?
The change is just to be in line with international best practice.
Okay.
That's right, yeah.
All right, very well. We'll look forward to what comes out of that. But we're, of course, talking about the 16 days of activism, and it's been always commemorated every year. Tell us more about this year's commemoration.
Thank you very much, Fatou. Today is the 25th of November, and internationally, this date is recognized as International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women and Girls. And December 10th is Human Rights Day. So the dates 25th November to 10th December is declared by the UN and internationally as 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. And then the Gambia is not alone in observing this, because Gambia has signed and ratified the International Convention for the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. Similarly, we have also signed and ratified the International Convention on the Rights of the Child. And the commitments made in ratifying those conventions have been translated into action by coming up with the Women's Act Amendment 2016, Women's Act Amendment 2015, Children's Act Amendment 2016, the Domestic Violence Act, and the Sexual Offences Act. These are laws which protect the rights and welfare of women.
And how effective have they been in doing so in our context?
Okay, a lot of sensitization has been going on to popularize the laws, and then where people offend women and girls and they are reported, the law takes the right course of action, and then the perpetrators are dealt with. I want to come back to sexual and gender-based violence. Gender-based violence is a human rights violation, and gender-based violence is in different forms. There's physical violence, there's sexual violence, there's domestic violence, there's economic violence, there's psychological violence. Sexual violence, whatever the form, is devastating to the health and reproductive health and rights of women and girls. So as a result, the Gambia has joined the rest of the world in making sure that the rights of women and girls are protected. And that's the reason we have all of these laws in place. And yes, during this period of 16 days, we are going to be campaigning against gender-based violence, but that doesn't mean that we are stopping at that. Every day is a day to campaign against gender-based violence.
And that makes me want to ask about, of course, like you've mentioned, this is a prayer to amplify voices and as well take stock of the challenges that women continue to face on a daily basis. Talk to us about these. What are the main issues confronting women and girls in this country?
There's quite a lot. When you look at violence, for example, there's battery, there's sexual harassment, there's rape, and the list goes on. So, but some of these things are considered as social norms. There's also FGM and child marriage. These are also considered as forms of gender-based violence. And these are considered as social norms, and they're accepted in our societies. But the point here is people don't know the negative consequences of this. This is the reason why we go out with our partners, the NGOs, international organizations, and CSOs to sensitize people on the harmful effects of, this. These are negative social norms. Let's accept the positive social norms and do away with the negative ones.
And what about in the offices and homes? What are those forms that we frequently see?
In the offices, there's a lot of sexual harassment going on. Sometimes people don't know that these are sexual harassments. So this is the reason why it's good to sensitize people and let them know, so that we can get the required attitudinal and behavior changes. In the homes, there's sexual violence, there's domestic violence, there's physical violence, there's also sexual harassment. But what is clear is that we have to make sure that we sensitize people, let them know these things are harmful, so they can stop. Many a time when you confront people and you explain to them, then they realize that what they are doing is bad and they stop. But if they don't know, these harassments are going to continue, and they are not good for the health and welfare of women and children.
So education is key.
It's
Tell
important,
us what your ministry is doing with, of course, partners to, in fact, address these common issues.
A lot of sensitization is going on. During the 16 days of activism or not, this sensitization is going on at all levels, for policymakers, for security officers, for community members, which comprise of men, women, young people, and religious leaders, traditional leaders. And then as we are sensitizing people, we are seeing a gradual change. Although the change is very difficult at times, because considering a social norm, which is deep-rooted in our culture and societies, we have to continue with the sensitization. One thing that we have also done, which has given us a positive result, is the training of police officers. With funding from UNFPA, we integrated gender and gender-based violence in the curriculum of the police training school, and developed a training manual, and also established a gender unit at the police training school. As we are speaking, over 100,500 police officers have been trained on gender and gender-based violence. And the police have taken it upon themselves to do sensitization on radio and television. Because one thing, before, When people work in the police station and report a case of gender-based violence, they are dismissed by the police officers because they don't consider it as a matter warranting police intervention. So, but with the sensitization of the police themselves, now we are seeing more and more cases being reported to the police. Yes, they are reported, but the prosecution is very low, if any, because people will withdraw the cases from the police. But I said to people that the mere fact that they are reported, it means we are making a big achievement.
Right.
Before, there was no reporting at all. Now they are reporting, even though they withdraw. But what needs to be done now is to make sure that when they report, they are not withdrawn. If one or two are prosecuted, I'm sure people will learn a lesson and eventually will reduce and eventually eliminate gender-based violence.
Very well said. Before we go, just to wrap it up, Minister, of course, talking about all of these interventions, you need resources. We understand that UN agencies have been very key in supporting you establish fully this particular ministry in terms of your capacity and giving you the technical support needed. But we just heard from Parliament the report right now that your ministry has not been given enough. Would you say what you've been given or allocated in the budget is enough?
It's not enough because we made a lot of noise out of this, and we have had a meeting with the select committee on gender and made it clear to them that what is given to us is not enough. Remember, it's a new ministry, and we need to do a lot of work. And it's a big ministry indeed, because look at the ministry. We are dealing with women, children, people with disability, the elderly, the vulnerable groups. If you remove that from the population, who is left? Nothing, absolutely. So it's a big ministry, and we have a big task ahead of us. So you should be given a budget that can take care of our work.
Very well, Minister, and we expand this conversation in our subsequent programs very soon, or maybe as well on the OGI shortly. Thanks for your time on the GRTS News.
Thank you so much.
And now moving on, the Tourism and Culture Minister continues his nationwide tour of all the vital tourism and cultural sites across the country, this time to the Upper River region. Uminjai is traveling with the tour party, and she files in this report.
Forward with plans to promote regional and domestic tourism, the Tourism and Culture Board continued his information gathering tour to assess progress on development works. At a visit to Fatoto Bumba camp in the Upper River region, Minister Bah toured the tourism camp and emphasized the need for recruitment of Gambian staff, especially those within the region. Meeting with the Horses and Donkeys Association officials in Sambelkunda, Sierra South, Bah strongly emphasized the need to preserve the animals and not to trade them for money. At a stop in Kabuka Guest House in Kudang, where construction works are near completion, Minister Bah expressed satisfaction on the level of work at the guest house, which he noted upon completion can add value to regional tourism. The minister wrapped up his day's visits to tourism sites at the Trans-Gambia Lodge in summer. The tour continues. Ominjai, GRTS.
And now the Truth Commission continues hearing on the theme of the human rights violations by the NIA. Today hearings, Bakari Tamba, former prison officer, narrated his ordeal in the hands of the NIA for an alleged involvement of handing over a phone to inmates and alleged coup plotter Obimbai. Ibrahim Cham has the details.
Today's hearings commence with the announcement of the approval of the extension of the TRRC to 30th June 2021. Chairman Dr. Lamin Sise mentioned that due to the COVID-19 operations were scaled down and topics such as the massacre of the 56 Ghanaians, the disappearance of Chief Mane, death of Solo Sanding, Junglers Part 2, sexual and gender-based violence Part 2 are all yet to be covered. The chairman added that its report and recommendations will be submitted to the President by early July 2021. And later, the proceedings and the first witness to testify was Bakari Tamba, a former prison officer who was accused of giving a mobile phone to an inmate and alleged coup plotter Obi Mbai. The witness further explained how he was arrested and taken to the NIA for questioning and was placed in a cell with a prison officer Ablai Kamara, one Francis Mendy, and Lang Tombong Tamba. Close to their cell was a white man called Mark Lehman from Germany. The witness mentioned he observed severe beating marks on the body of Ablai Kamara, the other prison officer, who was also accused of giving a phone to Obi Mbai. Bakari Tamba mentioned that he was escorted to the torturing session by Bukari Kamara, where sticks and pipes were placed on the floor. Michael Korea, Michael Rambo alias Momodu Jaju, and Sanam Manjang, according to the witness, were the ones who tortured him with sticks, pipes, and a cutlass.
When I said that, that was the time when Michael Correa hit me very mercilessly with that cutlass in his hand on my back. That's the time when I shouted very loudly. I told them, why are you doing this to me? They told me to talk. Then I said, what do you want? Do you want me to say that I gave the mobile to Obimbai? They said, yes. This is what we want you to say.
He explained how he was forced to sign a statement admitting to receive the phone from the white man at Westfield and giving the phone to Obimbai. The matter was taken to the courts, where he was later acquitted and discharged, but relieved of his duties by the prison services. Omar Jatta, a close friend of O.J. Jallow, was next to testify at the commission. The witness mentioned that it was after the naming ceremony of O.J.'s driver, Wuye Sane, that they were all picked up separately and tortured. He explained how he was electrocuted by NIA agents, including Jaga Mendy, Daba Marena, Salmina Drame, Fode Bari, and Usman Sidibe.
But what puzzled me, they were electrocuting me, and I was shouting. Upon all that, some of them were kicking me.
Something like a stick or anything.
Something like a stick, they were beating me.
To this day, Omar Jatta walks abnormally due to the tortures he endured. Later in the day, a press briefing was also held by the lead counsel, Esa Fall, concerning the massacre of the 56 Ghanaians and an article of dissatisfaction by the Ghanaians for the proceedings to hear their case at the TRRC and subpoena Usman Sonko and Esa Jesus Baji. Lead counsel Fall mentioned that this has been covered by various news outlets and has piqued public interest, and it's only right to clear the air.
The TRRC takes the massacre of the 56 West Africans very, very seriously. As a result of the TRRC investigations and public hearings, those who carried out those massacres publicly confessed to having carried out the massacre. We would call about 5 witnesses from Ghana, and we've told them the type of witnesses we expect to call, including Kerry himself to be a witness. But I would say it quite clearly that the TRRC would not dance to the tune of any individual or institution. We would not be directed to or dictated by anyone as to what to do or how to do our work.
Reporting for GRTS News, I'm by Ibrahim Cham.
Peace ambassadors, the Gambia, in collaboration with the National Democratic Institute, on Tuesday organized a stakeholders roundtable discussion on its findings in the recently concluded by-elections in Nyamina West. Ibrahim Abba tells us more.
Former National Assembly member for Nyamina West constituency, Honorable Demba Sow, earlier this year, the Independent Electoral Commission conducted a by-election to fill the vacant seat. Peace ambassadors, the Gambia, with support from the National Democratic Institute, was one of the few accredited civil society organizations to observe the recently concluded Nyamina West by-elections. Briefing the media about its findings during the election, Raymond Esibagbon, Resident Program Director of the National Democratic Institute, explained that this was his institute's first election observation in the Gambia.
From the findings they made from the last recently conducted by-election in the Nyamina West constituency. For my office, the National Democratic Institute, we are relatively new in the Gambia. We came in early this year, and we are working with different groups, but those in government and also civil society organizations to promote good governance in the country.
For his part, Pa Makan Khan, Information and Public Affairs Officer of the IEC, pointed out that election observations adds value and credibility to the conduct of elections. He said elections are complex in nature and requires a holistic approach from all stakeholders.
Election observation
is often done in 3 phases. You have the pre-election, then the during the election, and then the post-election. So this is why election observers are able to provide a holistic picture of the whole electoral process. The peace ambassadors are one of the IEC's most reliable and committed partners in the electoral process. The IEC and peace ambassadors have a long-standing and fruitful relationship in the conduct of voter education, presidential elections, National Assembly elections, and local government elections. So the Nyamena West constituency by-election is not an exception to this.
Babukar Sambu, President Peace Ambassadors de Gambia, observed that the by-election was free and fair with no reported cases of intimidation. However, Mr. Sambu noted that campaign slogans of the candidates were mainly based on political lines rather than policies and programs.
In the past, Peace Ambassadors de Gambia focused its election observation efforts exclusively on election day. Customarily, Peace Ambassadors monitored and observed the voting, counting, transmission and declaration of election results. Peace Ambassadors is now expanding its election observation efforts to cover the entire electoral cycle with support from the technical partner, the National Democratic Institute for International Affairs. There were reports of politicians campaigning outside of the stipulated campaign period. Enforcement of campaign regulations remain lacking.
Participants such as Mohamed Ba, co-founder of Hopes of Tomorrow, and Kemo Bojang, National Secretary General of the UDP Youth Wing, both suggested that the IEC should conduct refresher trainings for electorates before elections. They call for aspiring candidates to debate on policies and programs rather than party lines. Ibrahim Abba, GRTS News.
And now, a youth movement called Stop Cyberbullying on Tuesday organized a press briefing to indicate their position on cyberbullying. Louis Mendy reports the movement is calling on the government to legislate against the practice, which often comes with emotional distress among victims.
Cyberbullying, which is a form of harassment using electronic means, using social media platforms such as Facebook, causes significant emotional and psychological distress, including low esteem among victims. In the Gambia, a youth movement called Stop Cyberbullying is calling on the government to legislate against the practice. Mehdi Baji is the secretary to the group.
If we have a law that is saying no to cyberbullying, it means anyone who wants to bully someone, anyone who wants to Photoshop someone's picture will think twice, will think of the consequences, will think of what the law has to say or what the law will do to that person if he happens to Photoshop anybody's picture or to bully someone on social media. And this is why it's important that it should be everyone's concern. We should come together and fight this and make sure our future generation will not be victims of rampant cyberbullying in our society.
At a press conference organized by the group on Tuesday, Mehdi Baji said the practice is not only bad, but it's against the Gambian tradition and norms as people of tradition and religion.
This is our aim. We don't want anyone to be the next victim and have societal trauma or psychological trauma going through their entire lives. We want to put a stop to this, and we believe we can together if we join hands together. What is not prohibited by law is virtually permissible by law. Therefore, we need that prohibition to immoralize behaviors of people and protect our society.
If we stop cyberbullying, we stop character assassination, we stop defamation of character, we all believe that we will be able to build a better nation.
MC Cham, also working with the group, said legislating against cyberbullying will deter further practice of the act, and that is important for the maintenance of peace.
We want to engage the parliamentarians, even the stakeholders like the Minister of Interior and Justice Minister, so that we can also have a law in place. Because if you look at the cyberbullying now, it's beyond control. people are now using the social media to damage people's image, which is wrong. I think that we should also use the social media to enlighten people what is our affair, what we are affected as a Gambians. But now they are using the social media, try to discredit people, try to put a lot of allegations to an individual. It's very wrong. That's why I think that it's also proper to engage the stakeholders like National Assembly members, we engage the Speaker. That's why even our petition letter is also going to be presented to the Speaker of the Assembly so that they will start to discuss with the stakeholders how can we pass a private bill.
Fatou Drame, the head of media at the Stop Cyberbullying movement, says he was a victim of the practice. For her, he who feels it knows it.
I always feel angry and I feel like fighting back because I have a feeling that I should not allow anybody to bring me down or anybody to put me in a place I am not supposed to be or to put me in a funny position. So I have to fight back, and which means it will make me a fighter. So everybody believes in the social media that I'm a fighter, whilst I was being a victim of cyberbullying. We are the voice of the voiceless. We have a voice, so we have the right to speak out for those who don't have a voice.
And as personnel of the Stop Cyberbullying movement stage a campaign to stop the practice in the country, they also intend to hold a march past on the 28th of this month to further sensitize the public on the effects of the social media game. Louis Mendy, GRTS.
Sports news is up next right after this break. Do stay.
First time in the Gambia, your favorite GSM operator, Africell, is the first and only GSM operator to launch a brand new technology called the eSIM. The eSIM simply means you can use your phone without a SIM card. Do you have an iPhone 11, any of the iPhone X series, a Google Pixel 3, or any new phone that supports the e-technology? Then walk into any Africell customer care center and activate your eSIM today. With your virtual Africell SIM, you can use more than one number without having a physical SIM card in your phone. Enjoy this brand new technology for the first time in the Gambia, brought to you by Africell. eSIM, your phone without a SIM card. For more information, please call 111. Where Africell goes, nobody dares to follow.
Now to some sports, because Diego Maradona has died from a heart attack just days after turning 60. The Argentinian football legend died at home. His lawyer said just 2 weeks after having surgery on a blood clot in his brain. Widely regarded as one of the greatest players of all time on the pitch, his life off the pitch was equally notorious. Amid battles with drug and alcohol addiction, Maradona won the World Cup with Argentina in 1986, having knocked England out of the tournament in a match which saw him score the famous Hand of God goal. May his soul rest in perfect peace. That was all we have time for you, but here's a look at the top stories once again. President Barrow has toured the capital city to assess ongoing works on the Banjul Roads and Drainage project. Vice President Aissatou Toure presided over the official opening of stakeholder dialogue of the National Environment Management Council. Beginning 16-day activism to end gender-based violence, women councillors have gathered to discuss social issues affecting women across the country. In sports, legendary Argentine footballer Diego Armando Maradona has died aged 60. Alberto Fernandez, the president of Argentina, declares 3 days of national mourning. Elsewhere, Trump's policy to regulate illegal migration among Africans is expected to take effect on the 24th December 2020. Well, that was all in this edition of the news at 8. Join us again at 2200 hours for more. Until then, enjoy the rest of our program. Bye for now.